The story begins in 2018. In an abandoned building, a man who has a scary face is seen with his gang, interrogating 3 of his men. Where the scary face man, who is the head of the thugs, looks exasperated because none of his 3 subordinates want to admit that the 3 of them as a betrayer and have leaked secrets to the enemy gang. Until a girl who is the main character of this drama named Scifi came. Scifi's arrival to the place because she was hired by the thug leader as a psychic to reveal who is betrayed. With her ability, Scifi can tell whether someone is talk honest or not. Scifi tried to question the 3 subordinates of the thug, but all 3 turned out to be honest if they did not betray. Seeing Scifi's actions that seemed to be trusted by the chairman, a short cropped hair man who was a deputy thug suddenly said that he didn't believe what a little girl like Scifi said, but the vice thug's words turned out to be a lie, which of course Scifi could detect. This makes Scifi ask back whether the deputy thug is the one who leaked the group's secret. Upon hearing the question, the deputy thug tried to evade with a stammer. However, Scifi was able to figure out that the deputy thug was the one who had betrayed his own group. Even the deputy thug who was limping was pretending, so he is not to be suspected. Knowing all that, the head thug immediately ordered all his troops to beat up his deputy. On her way home, Scifi sees a man walking with a blood-stained shirt. However, not wanting to interfere in other people's business, Scifi ignored it. The next day, when Scifi came out of the motel, the vice thug with a battered condition was waiting for Scifi to take revenge. Fortunately, because the vice thug was injured, Scifi was able to escape. As a result, the chase reaches a station, where Scifi immediately gets into a bus to Seoul to avoid the pursuit of the deputy thug, who looks very vengeful to Scifi. However, the bus that Scifi was on did not move and leave. It was because there was a man who was scolding a young man because he had left his sister. Feeling anxious because the vice thug almost found her, Scifi tried to break up the fight by claiming to be the girlfriend of the young man. Because of this, the angry man left and Scifi was saved. Long story short, 5 years passed. Now Scifi, with her special abilities, is known among the rich who want to hire her services. Even now, Scifi has been hired by a rich woman named Choi Ji-hai to detect the lies of her boyfriend. Scifi's ability to detect someone's lies is by hearing the target's words directly. At first, Scifi felt that Ji-hai's boyfriend was indeed an honest person who loved Ji-hai, not because of her wealth. However, when one of Ji-hai's house assistants came to give a banquet, Scifi realized that Ji-hai's boyfriend was having an affair with the house assistant. Even now, the assistant is pregnant. Knowing the truth, Scifi then told Ji-hai that her boyfriend had cheated on her with her own house assistant, even to the point of pregnancy. Hearing that, Ji-hai is furious and immediately gets angry. Feeling her job was done, Scifi then left accompanied by one of her assistants named Bak Chae-hoon. On the way, Chae-hoon felt something was strange. Because Scifi never performed rituals or made offerings to spirits or similar entities that helped her, like conventional shamans in general. Then he asked about it. Scifi then said that she only pretended to be a shaman, so that each of her clients would believe her and not have to perform rituals, let alone give offerings to spiritual entities. Scifi then tells Chae-hoon that she has a special ability that can detect other people's lies. It wasn't that she was possessed by a spirit or anything like that, but rather that ability was obtained from childhood, even when she was still in her mother's womb. Where at that time her mother, named Sha Hyang-suk, who was very crazy about money, prayed very hard, so that one day her daughter, Scifi, would have special abilities so that she could easily earn money. And because she really wanted to be granted by God, Scifi's mother even prayed at several places of worship of religious beliefs, such as shrine, churches, and also temples. Until when Scifi was born, she had the ability to detect other people's lies. However, it was initially even troublesome for her, because it was considered strange by her friends, and Scifi also felt that her ability was a curse. However, her money-oriented mother told Scifi to utilize her ability to become a prosecutor, in order to have a lot of money in the future. Until when she was in high school, Scifi realized that she could use her ability to make a lot of money. Of course, by pretending to be a shaman to hire rich people. To smoothen and make it easy her plan, Scifi set up a cafe. She named the cafe as a tarot cafe, so that her identity as a shaman girl could be safe and more famous. The scene then moves to a man who is driving a sports car. On his way, the man was stopped by a police officer who was conducting a raid. Although he has done nothing wrong, it seems that even though his face is covered by a mask, the man is shaking with fear. When the police officer questioned him, even this man seemed traumatized when dealing with the police. When the man wanted to take off his mask, it turned out that he was the man who accidentally met Scifi on the bus 5 years ago. Here it is known that the man name is Kim Do-ha, and Kim Do-ha works as a composer or music maker. Currently, his name is very loved and famous because the songs he created sung by artists named Cyan are always trending #1. In fact, Kim Do-ha's own name is bigger than Cyan, the artist who sings his songs. However, no one knows the identity and face of Kim Do-ha because Kim Do-ha always keeps it a secret. And there are only 2 people who know Kim Do-ha's real face, namely Cyan the singer who always sings his song, and also the CEO of his record label company named Jo Duk-chan. In fact, because he really did not want his face to be known, Kim Do-ha once attended an award ceremony that he won. He was always represented by Cyan. This of course made the media completely in trying to find out Kim Do-ha's real face, by following Cyan who knew where Kim Do-ha lived. That way, finally a reporter could find out Kim Do-ha's place and try to take a photo of Kim Do-ha's real face. Because he wanted to make this a headline later, the reporter spied on Kim Do-ha's residence using a drone. This made Kim Do-ha have to move house, where Duk-shin, as his friend, advised Kim Do-ha to live in a secluded apartment of his own, because only that way the media will not know Kim Do-ha's whereabouts. However, without Kim Do-ha realizing it, when he moved into the apartment he was given, the neighborhood was in chaos. In that time, the people who are there are being upset, because there is a mysterious man who wears a mask, always targeting women. In fact, Scifi's assistant, named Yoon Yi-Scifi or Cassandra, was almost being his victim. When Kim Do-ha go out to find food using a mask, he was mistaken for the perverted man in question because they both wore masks. That makes Kim Do-ha, who knows nothing, now the target of everyone's restless anger. Fortunately, Scifi came to help. Where Scifi and Cassandra, her assistant, said that the person who always targets women is not the man they are currently hold, because according to Cassandra, the mysterious man in question has a different stature and posture, and she had sprayed her perfume on the mysterious man. Hearing that, everyone who was there immediately released Kim Do-ha and looked for the real mysterious man, who might be the one of them. By smelling Cassandra's perfume, they finally found a man who had a strong perfume scent and wear a mask. Cassandra, who was very upset, immediately beat the man until unconscious. Meanwhile, Kim Do-ha, who felt he owed, thanked Scifi and left there. Unexpectedly, it turns out that Kim Do-ha and Scifi live next door to each other in the same apartment. While in her apartment, Scifi, who remembered the incident earlier, felt something strange, because the man she saved was so scared when people would take off his mask. Meanwhile, Kim Do-ha himself, to fill the void in the new environment, he works at a cafe as a piano player and waiter. With a very good ability to play musical instruments, especially the piano, one of the female customers there was immediately mesmerized listening to Kim Do-ha's plays. In fact, the woman aggressively asked Kim Do-ha to take off his sunglasses. However, Kim Do-ha seemed uninterested. He even just walked away. Later that evening, Scifi, who is an avid football enthusiast, was seen preparing for a football match. The match between the Manchester United team, who will face their great enemy Liverpool. Until when his favorite team, MU, put the ball into the Liverpool goal, Scifi shouted very loudly. Because of the scream, Kim Do-ha, who was sleeping, suddenly woke up. Kim Do-ha, who was also a football maniac and Liverpool fan, immediately turned on his cell phone to watch the match. And when the first half was over, a courier was seen bringing 2 delivery of food ordered from Kim Do-ha and Scifi simultaneously. But it turned out that the orders of the 2 were also switch up. So inevitably, they had to meet to exchange their food order. At that moment, both of them shouted back to each other when their favorite team scored a goal. The next day at her tarot cafe, Scifi was accepting clients who wanted to hire her services. At that time, Scifi appears to be visited by a man pretending to be an artist, who turns out to be a music composer like Kim Do-ha, named Park Moo-jin. Park Moo-jin's arrival at Scifi's cafe was none other than to hire her services to detect the lies of a man, who was none other than Kim Do-ha. Because Kim Moo-jin is very jealous of Kim Do-ha and is very eager to be able to drop and broke his name. Scifi, who still doesn't know if Kim Do-ha, the famous composer, is her new neighbor, seems to agree with Kim Moo-jin's offer. Long story short, Scifi is already at the restaurant where Kim Moo-jin will meet Kim Do-ha. Scifi was assigned to stay in the next room and only needed to listen to Kim Do-ha's words, whether Kim Do-ha was lying or not, when Kim Moo-jin asks questions that will hopefully bring Kim Do-ha down. However, when Scifi listened to everything Kim Do-ha said, none of Do-ha's words could Scifi detect, whether his answer was a lie or not. It made Scifi curious, because she never experienced anything like that before. After Kim Do-ha left, Scifi then ignored Kim Moo-jin and told Chae-hoon to chase Kim Do-ha's car. Although in the end they lost track, Scifi decided to just walk. At that time, she accidentally met Kim Do-ha, who was sitting on the street. Do-ha could be like that, maybe because of the effects of dinner with Kim Moo-jin making him drunk. Scifi, with curiosity, then tried to approach Kim Do-ha, and innocently, Scifi even took off the mask that Kim Do-ha was wearing. To her surprise, it turns out that Kim Do-ha is none other than the new neighbor. Kim Do-ha, who realized after making eye contact with Scifi, immediately rushed to put his mask back on and immediately left Scifi. And while at his home, Kim Do-ha, with a feeling of anxiety if his identity will be disseminated by Scifi, then remembers that Scifi is the woman who helped him 5 years ago, when he got into trouble on the bus. While Scifi is at her home, she is now curious why someone as famous and rich as Kim Do-ha is living in a small apartment. Until the next day, Do-ha meets Scifi again. This makes him awkward and tries to avoid Scifi. But in the end, Kim Do-ha ventured to ask if Scifi knew anything after seeing her face. Very innocently, Scifi answered if she didn't know anything. After seeing Do-ha's face, other than the good looks that were not her type, she still could not detect any lies on Do-ha. The unfinished conversation was cut short. Before Scifi could finish talking, suddenly came a long-haired man who looked suspicious. Seeing the man coming towards Scifi, Kim Do-ha immediately gave his body to protect Scifi. However, it turned out that the man just wanted to ask for help by borrowing a cell phone and a little money, which would later be payback. Of course, it was not considered by Kim Do-ha, but it's different with Scifi. She, who could tell that the long-haired man was not lying, thoughtlessly lent him her cell phone and gave her money. This made Do-ha astonished, because seeing Scifi can be kind to strangers and she doesn't know. Then the scene moves to Scion, who is a famous idol. She was seen performing at that time. However, Scion suddenly fell and had to be rushed to the hospital. Scion is a woman who is very crazy about Kim Do-ha, and she really hopes that Do-ha will accept her feelings. It can be seen when Scion is so happy when extraordinary, when Kim Do-ha just calls her to ask about Scion's condition. Meanwhile, Chae-hoon, Scifi's assistant, who was willing to wait for his idol, Scion, in the outside the hospital. Chae-hoon did this just to find out Scion's health condition. Evidently, Chae-hoon idolized Scion very much. Until Fortune Goddess came to Chae-hoon. That's because when he was going to eat ramen at a mini market, because as a fanatic fan of Scion, Chae-hoon could know that the person who was eating ramen beside him was his goddess idol, even though she was in undercover. Scion, who knew her identity could be known by Chae-hoon, was seen asking Chae-hoon to be keep silent and not to overreact so that she would not be known by many people. So Scion also gave a scrambled egg that she wanted to eat as a reward thank you to Chae-hoon. It clearly made Chae-hoon so happy because he was given a gift by his goddess idol, even though it was only a boiled egg. While at his residence, Do-ha, who was making music, then heard that the door of his apartment was banged by someone, and when Do-ha opened the door, he saw a woman asking for money. It turns out that this old lady is Sol-hee's mother, who has the wrong apartment. The mother mistook Do-ha's apartment for Sol-hee's apartment, even though she had shown a paper that said to ask for some money to Do-ha, who felt confused. Soon after, Sol-hee came and was so embarrassed to see her mother's behavior like that. However, her mother was indifferent and scolded Sol-hee for not transferring her monthly money. Emotionally, Sol-hee gives her mother the money she asked for. Then she goes into the house and contemplates her mother's behavior that has always been like that. Not long after, Kim Do-ha talks to Sol-hee from his balcony, which is beside to Sol-hee's balcony. Kim Do-ha greeted Sol-hee first by saying if he accidentally heard Sol-hee's mother's cruel words. To comfort Sol-hee a little, Do-ha also said if he had the same fate as Sol-hee, because his mother didn't seem to love him. This made Sol-hee's feelings begin to calm down and was slightly relieved by Do-ha's words. The next day, when Sol-hee wanted to leave to meet a client who hired her services, Sol-hee met Do-ha again, where both of them are now greeting each other with their sweet smiles, even though Do-ha is still wearing his black mask. After that, Sol-hee was seen in a restaurant because she was hired by a woman who wanted to know whether her boyfriend loved her or not. Of all the questions asked by the woman who hired her services to her lover, none were detected as honest. Until after the task is completed and she receives her pay envelope, Sol-hee intends to leave. But the woman who hired her services instead said if she would stay with her boyfriend, even though she had been lied. At first, Sol-hee thinks that her client is a stupid woman for wanting to stay and hope to survive. Until Sol-hee was shocked to see the fact if the woman's lover lied just to give a birthday surprise to the woman who hired her services. Of course, it makes Sol-hee feel guilty, because with her ability to detect lies, it almost made a relationship between lovers who love each other just destroyed. For that, before leaving, Sol-hee also returned the money given by the woman earlier. Then, while walking, Sol-hee also recalled when she and her ex-boyfriend named Lee Kang-min broke up. It was because at that time, Kang-min was caught lying. After seeing the incident earlier, Sol-hee felt that maybe her ex Kang-min was lying because there was something that Sol-hee didn't want to know, because maybe Kang-min was doing white lying or whatever. Recalling the incident makes Sol-hee sad and disgusted to have the ability to know other people's lies when they talk. Stressed by all that, Sol-hee also saw a nightclub place. Immediately, she decided to go straight there, just to get rid of the fatigue and exhaustion she felt by drinking alcohol to getting drunk. Where there was a man who saw Sol-hee. The man tried to take chances of the moment when Sol-hee was drunk. Fortunately, Kim Do-ha, who happened to work there, certainly did not let anything unwanted happen. Then Kim Do-ha immediately took Sol-hee, who was already rambling, tweeting anything because she was drunk, to leave the place. But on the way, Sol-hee regained consciousness and asked Kim Do-ha to take her to a restaurant because she was very hungry. Surprisingly, Kim Do-ha complies with Sol-hee's request and they end up in it together. And when they return to her apartment, there Sol-hee saw two reporters who were trying to find Kim Do-ha's residence. Because the two reporters were very sure that Kim Do-ha lived there, it was known that Sion came to the apartment. Sol-hee, who didn't want Kim Do-ha's identity to be revealed, she tried to cover Kim Do-ha's face, who was now not wearing a mask, by jumping up and down, and immediately put Kim Do-ha's mask back on and immediately brought Kim Do-ha to inside. The two reporters, however, did not give up and immediately followed Sol-hee, until when Kim Do-ha wanted to enter his apartment, his forgetful making forgot his own door password, making Sol-hee no choice to take Kim Do-ha into his apartment to avoid reporters. Where Sol-hee, who did not expect to have guests, she immediately cleaned up her scattered women's stuff. Awkwardness occurs again. When the time is getting late, then a TV commercial shows an advertisement for sex drugs, making both of them awkward with a situation they didn't expect. Not long after, Sol-hee saw a Korean drama about a girl with special abilities. In the drama, the female protagonist can see ghosts, but when with a man, the special ability is immediately disappear. The drama made Sol-hee think, if it was possible, it could also happen to her, namely if Sal-hee continues to be with Do-ha. Soon the bell rang, and when it was opened, it turned out to be Kang-min, Sol-hee's ex-boyfriend, who happened to come because he got a complaint from the other residents to evict the reporter. Lee Kang-min, who didn't expect to see Sal-hee again, looks so surprised when he sees a man's shoe, which belongs to Do-ha, in front of Sal-hee's apartment. Not wanting to disturb her, Kang-min immediately excused himself. Meanwhile, Kim Do-ha, who heard the conversation just now, told Sal-hee to explain the real situation, so that there would be no misunderstanding. After that, Kim Do-ha immediately left because the situation outside was now safe. Until the next day, Sal-hee met Kang-min again at his cafe to try to explain the situation last night. But before explaining it, Kang-min first apologized for making Sal-hee remember such bad memories when she first parted ways with Kang-min. Because after breaking up with her, Kang-min suddenly moved away and never contacted Sal-hee for almost 3 years. Kang-min only continues to apologize about it, arguing that he is afraid of disturbing Sal-hee if Sal-hee has been in a relationship with someone else. Not long after, Kim Do-ha suddenly arrived, where with a feeling of annoyance, Sal-hee even introduced Kim Do-ha to Kang-min as her boyfriend. Kim Do-ha, who heard it, initially wanted to be frank that they didn't have any relationship. But seeing the code from Sal-hee, Kim Do-ha just agreed to everything Sal-hee said to Kang-min. Then they leave there with hand in hand. Feeling helped by Kim Do-ha, at night, Sal-hee also gave a message if she was waiting for Do-ha in the elevator to have dinner together. The intention, this dinner as a form of Sal-hee's gratitude to Kim Do-ha. Kim Do-ha, who usually always doesn't want to be invited by anyone, now he even accepts Sal-hee's invitation to have dinner together. But it didn't last long. Kim Do-ha then got a message from Sayan, who's saying that she would do something dangerous, because Kim Do-ha no longer wanted to work with her in making her new album. Sayan threatened that something bad would definitely happen to her. Afraid that something bad would happen, in a hurry, Do-ha left. But it was déjà vu. He remembered the bad memories of his past. Kim Do-ha immediately had a panic attack, which made him faint. Sal-hee, who saw that, tried to calm Do-ha down. Sal-hee also said that she would drive Do-ha's car. Until when he arrived at the place that Sayan said. With much emotion, Do-ha then dragged Sayan to his car. Do-ha immediately called Duk-chan to come immediately and bring Sayan home. Meanwhile, Sayan herself was so surprised to see Sal-hee in Do-ha's car, because all she knew was that Do-ha was a very closed person. Meanwhile, Sal-hee, who heard Sayan and Do-ha's conversation, realized that Sayan was lying about committing suicide. Sayan did it just to attract Kim Do-ha's attention. After Duk-chan came to take Sayan home, Do-ha, who seemed to be still full anxiety, fell asleep. Arriving at the apartment parking lot, Sal-hee heard when Do-ha was delirious if he didn't commit murder. But strangely, Sal-hee detected Do-ha's words as a lie. But Sal-hee thinks that Do-ha might be dreaming of murder because he's too upset with Sayan. But without Sal-hee knowing, it turns out that Do-ha has been involved in the murder of his own ex-girlfriend in the past. The man who scolded him when he was lied to was the older brother of Do-ha's ex-girlfriend. Sal-hee saw that Do-ha had a fever, so she thoughtfully prepared medicine and other things. Both exhausted, Sal-hee falls asleep next to Do-ha. And the next morning, Sal-hee wants to leave. But suddenly, Do-ha woke up. With a different expression, Do-ha asked Sal-hee not to deal with him anymore. Hearing that remark made Sal-hee upset. Sal-hee also felt that Do-ha should have thanked her. Whereupon trouble soon arose when a person wearing a mask, just like Do-ha, made a confession on the internet. His confession was in the form of a statement that most of the song composers in Duk-chan's label company plagiarized the work of small composers, and claimed the song belonged to them. Even this man claimed that he was Kim Do-ha. Of course, it makes the media, who are eager to know Kim Do-ha's real face, more and more flocked to find out Kim Do-ha's real face as soon as possible. While Duk-chan can't do anything, because it must be resolved by Kim Do-ha himself, because now the public pressure is very high. Sal-hee, who saw the news, she was so worried, especially since Do-ha suddenly disappeared, not in his apartment, until Sal-hee met Duk-chan. Duk-chan says that Do-ha used to have a hard time, making him an introvert. But Duk-chan said Do-ha's personality slowly changed after meeting Sol-hee. For that, Duk-chan asked Sol-hee to be able to persuade Do-ha to settle the matter, because if allowed to drag on, it will make Do-ha's good reputation broken. Hearing all that, Sol-hee then looked for Do-ha to the nightclub where he used to meet Do-ha. But there the cafe owner said that Do-ha didn't want to meet anyone. But Sol-hee says that she will wait until she meets Do-ha. After a long wait, Do-ha, who didn't know that Sol-hee was still waiting for him, was annoyed when Sol-hee came to him. However, Do-ha tried to act indifferent. That makes Sol-hee angry and says that now everyone is talking about Do-ha because of a problem. Do-ha, who didn't know about the problem, returned to being ignorant by saying if the problem would also be taken care of by Duk-chan. Hearing that, Sol-hee suddenly got angry and immediately said that Do-ha should be mature and solve his own problems, without waiting for others to solve his personal problems. After saying that, Sol-hee left. While Do-ha, who heard Sol-hee's words, then remembered when his mother never paid attention to him, and only music always made his feeling calm. After that, Do-ha, who saw the video recording of the person who claimed to be him, Do-ha carefully saw something, namely the serial number of the musical instrument that was there. With his experience, Kim Do-ha was able to find out the person's address. For this reason, Do-ha immediately rushed there to meet the person who claimed to be him. The person who claimed to be Kim Do-ha turned out to be a young man who had the same aspirations as Do-ha, namely to become a famous composer. But his song was stolen by Park Moo-jin. Realizing the problem, Do-ha was his usual self and claimed that he was the real Kim Do-ha and promised to solve the young man's problem, as long as the young man admitted that he was not Kim Do-ha. Meanwhile, while Duk-chan and his team were negotiating the matter, the young man suddenly came in apologizing and promising to admit his mistake. And soon Do-ha also came, while saying in front of everyone if he was the real Kim Do-ha. Until when Do-ha wanted to take off his mask, Duk-chan immediately took Do-ha away to his room. After that, when Do-ha wanted to leave, Sion then came. Do-ha, who now no longer wanted to make Sion continue to hope for him, then said that he never had feelings for Sion, and Do-ha only considered Sion as a co-worker and friend. Then not long after, the problem was over, because the young man made a video confession on the internet. But trouble might come again, as Do-ha's ex-brother was seen reading the news, and with a grudge, he planned something. Meanwhile, Kim Do-ha and Sol-hee's relationship is now entering a new phase, because Do-ha is confident to take off his mask in public, and not gonna forget to give a sweet smile to Sol-hee. Even now, Do-ha wants to accompany Sol-hee for a drink together. Although in the end, Sol-hee always gets drunk and starts to mess up because of being drunk. Until the next day, Sol-hee, who just woke up, remembers when she was drunk and talking erui and doing embarrassing things in front of Do-ha. And soon the doorbell of her apartment rang, which was Do-ha and aimed to give Sol-hee a medicine for reducing hangover. Sol-hee, who was still ashamed of her actions when she was drunk, then apologized and promised to clean Do-ha's white shirt that she soiled last night. After that, Sol-hee eagerly tried to clean Do-ha's shirt. And after it was clean, Sol-hee met Do-ha with the excuse of giving Do-ha's shirt. However, Sol-hee actually wanted to meet Do-ha because it made her happy. On the other hand, it turns out that the closeness of Sol-hee and Do-ha was seen by Kang-min. It turns out that Kang-min, who is Sol-hee's ex-boyfriend, still has feelings for Sol-hee from the past until now. However, when Sol-hee, who was blossomed in love because she could be close to Do-ha, suddenly her mother told Sol-hee to come to her house. That's because her mother wants to introduce Sol-hee to her future rich husband or future stepfather, who has children same age as Sol-hee. Sol-hee, who knows her mother's character, suspects that her mother is only after his wealth. Sol-hee's arrival disrupts her mother's plan, and that makes her mother angry and immediately destroys Sol-hee's cafe. There Sol-hee, who was fed up with her mother's attitude, asked whether her mother loved her or not. Getting that question, of course, her mother didn't answer, because her mother already knew that she couldn't lie to Sol-hee. Instead, her mother continues to yell insults at Sol-hee as a quack girl. This was heard by Kim Do-ha, who came there, worried about Sol-hee. Plus, it was raining outside. Sol-hee, who saw Do-ha, of course, was very ashamed of her fate, who was treated like that by her mother. As the rain poured down, Sol-hee told Do-ha that everything that happened to her was due to her abilities. Therefore, Sol-hee thinks her relationship with Do-ha won't work because her ability is a curse. Do-ha, who didn't understand, then asked what abilities Sol-hee meant. While leaving, Sol-hee said that she can detect someone's lies when they talk. Do-ha, who heard it, then remained his every meet with Sol-hee. And Do-ha concluded that what Sol-hee said was not a lie. But clearly, according to Do-ha, Sol-hee is a good person. The next day, Do-ha then returned to see Sol-hee at her cafe to help Sol-hee clean up her cafe, which was still messy. Sol-hee, who saw Do-ha coming, then asked why Do-ha wasn't afraid of her. Do-ha replied that it wasn't important to him, because all he knew was that the Sol-hee he knew had a good personality. Hearing that, Sol-hee was happy, because for the first time, there are people who understand their shortcomings. In the midst of the now intense togetherness between Sol-hee and Kim Do-ha, Sol-hee has 3 guests who claim not to know each other. But the 3 of them both have a plan to bring down the bakery in front of Sol-hee's cafe. Sol-hee, who did not know their plan, tried to find out through their with her lie detector power, but the 3 people left immediately. Then soon a post that demonizes the bakery in front of Sol-hee's cave goes viral on social media. With the viral post, the bakery was immediately deserted. Kim Do-ha and Sol-hee, who heard the complaints of the bakery owner who claimed to be innocent, then Sol-hee planned to help him. Her help by investigating the plan of how the 3 people did it all. After investigating, it turned out that the 3 people wanted to control the location of the bakery, which was very strategic to be used as a service bureau business. After knowing that, Sol-hee and Do-ha then told everything to the owner of the bakery. After learning about it, the owner of the bakery immediately attacked the 3 people using flour. The reckless action made the 3 of them deterrent. Afterwards, the bakery owner invited Sol-hee and Kim Do-ha to eat together as neighbors of the neighborhood, which had never been done before. This was the first time Kim Do-ha, now confident, introduced himself as Kim Do-ha. With that confession, of course, everyone who was there did not believe and instead assumed that Kim Do-ha was joking. While Sion, who still did not give up on getting Do-ha's love, a few days later was seen coming to the neighborhood. But unfortunately, the people there realized Sion's arrival, who was an idol. It also made a little commotion, and in droves, the people there asked for a photo together. The uncontrolled situation made Sion uncomfortable and more uncomfortable, until Chae-hoon came, who was very gentle and swiftly took Sion away. Sion's arrival turned out to be meet Sol-hee and ask Sol-hee to move and no longer deal with Kim Do-ha. But of course, Sol-hee refused it, until Sion accidentally let slip and said that Kim Do-ha had been involved in a murder case in the past, and those words were detected by Sol-hee as honesty. It also made Sol-hee curious and wanted to ask Do-ha directly, while Do-ha himself is now meet with his mother. And finally, the reason why Do-ha always wears a mask was revealed, because Do-ha was told by his mother. The mother also told Do-ha to move to Germany, because her mother was afraid that because of Do-ha, the political image she had built so far would be broken. Do-ha, who heard that, was of course very angry, because his mother only cared about herself, and Do-ha then left his mother. After that, Do-ha then went to see Sol-hee, who had been waiting for him, where Sol-hee, who was curious with Sol-hee and Sion's conversation, then asked Do-ha about it directly, where Do-ha answered that he was not involved in the murder. However, this time Do-ha's words were detected by Sol-hee as lies. That made Sol-hee scared. But before talking, Duk-chan came to bring Do-ha, where Duk-chan was worried that Sion would do something reckless and tell all of Do-ha's past to the media. For Do-ha's good, Duk-chan also asked Do-ha to move back, because he felt that Sol-hee was not good for Do-ha. But Do-ha did not want to obey Duk-chan's request, and said that he fully trusted Sion and also Sol-hee, who would not say anything about his past, while Sol-hee, who is now increasingly confused, tries to find out about the murder case. And Scifi found an article about Duha, who was once taken by police officers for interrogation. But suddenly Duha was released on the grounds of lack of evidence. Until when they met again, Duha felt that Scifi was acting differently after hearing his confession that he did not commit the murder. Then Scifi accidentally spilled hot coffee on Duha's hand. This made Scifi feel guilty and tried to compress Duha's hand. At that moment, Scifi also said honestly if she had recently found out about the murder incident involving Duha. Duha, who heard it, then concluded that if Scifi detected his confession that did not kill was a lie. Scifi, who didn't believe him, then asked Duha to say once again whether Duha was involved in the murder or not. Duha then said once again that he did not commit murder. Initially, Duha's confession was not detected by Scifi as a lie, but soon Scifi got that what Duha said was a lie. But Scifi, who didn't believe it, asked Duha to evade and make any excuses, but Duha immediately left. Until because of that, their relationship has now become tenuous and get distance. While on the other hand, Duha's mother, who is now busy for the election of council members, was seen meeting Duk-chan to ask Duk-chan could persuade Duha move to Germany, where the conversation was overheard by Choi Eum-ho, the man who targeted Duha for revenge. As for Scifi, now her days seem confused because of her awkward relationship with Duha, but she continues to work according to the schedule, which is now Scifi must go to the hospital to meet her client. There Scifi accidentally sees Kang Min, who is doing control in the cancer room. Scifi, who saw that, then tried to ask the nurse by pretending to be Kang Min's guardian. Until Scifi got an unexpected thing: if all this time Kang Min turned out to be doing health control for 3 years because of the cancer he suffered. Instantly, Scifi concludes that this is the reason why Kang Min disappeared after breaking up with her. Until after finishing meet with her client, Scifi crossed paths with Kang Min. But Kang Min is seen trying to hide a paper, as if the paper doesn't want to be seen by Scifi. Kang Min, who still has feelings for Scifi, then invites Scifi to have dinner together. Scifi also said yes to Kang Min's invitation. After that, Scifi was then contacted by Duk-chan, who asked her to meet at his office. Upon arrival, Scifi felt underestimated when Duk-chan gave her an agreement letter. The agreement letter contained Scifi not to talk about Duha's past in exchange for money. Scifi, who felt humiliated, then left immediately, while Duha, who knew about it, immediately came without wearing a mask to ask Duk-chan why he did all that to Scifi. Duk-chan, who was already channeled, could not lie, then said that all this was the order of Duha's mother, who was, again, only worried that his image would be bad. Hearing that and the incident of the agreement letter made Duha feel guilty to Scifi. On the other hand, Scifi is now having dinner with Kang Min. Scifi, who no longer wants to lie, then says that she already knows that Kang Min has been struggling with cancer. For this reason, Scifi asked are the cancer was diagnosed when they were still dating. Kang Min then answers honestly if that's the reason why he broke up with Scifi, because he doesn't want to make Scifi sad and also hassle later to help him every day. Scifi, who heard that, she could only cry while apologizing, because all this time she had been prejudiced against Kang Min, until Kang Min invited Scifi to return and reconcile. However, Scifi apologizes if now her feelings already belong to someone else, namely Duha. Scifi, who now can no longer hold back her feelings, then goes to where Duha lives temporarily. There, Scifi meets Eum-ho, who is disguised as a security guard. Scifi, who has the ability to detect lies, then realizes Eum-ho's lie and plans to do something to Duha. Eum-ho also happened to be reprimanded by a real security guard there. Therefore, Scifi tried to call Duha and told him everything. Hearing that from Scifi made Duha worried and rushed out without wearing his mask. Because of that, Duha almost met Eum-ho, who wanted revenge for his sister Yeon-ji, who was also Duha's ex-girlfriend. But fortunately, Scifi could take Duha to hide. Until there, Scifi also said that he fully believed in Duha, who was detected by his own abilities to have committed murder. Therefore, Sal-hee decided to no longer trust her own abilities, and she fully trusts Do-ha. Do-ha, who heard that, then smiled happily. Do-ha then takes Sal-hee to his house and says that what Sal-hee did is very dangerous, because it's possible that Eum-ho can recognize Sal-hee, because he met her on the bus. Sal-hee, who heard that, felt amazed at the handsome man who had managed to sway her heart, because Do-ha still remembers the incident 5 years ago, which was their first meet. Sal-hee, who now knows if Eum-ho is the brother of Choi Eun-ji, Do-ha's ex, then Sal-hee asked what Eun-ji was like and why Do-ha broke up with her, until he got involved in Eun-ji's murder case. Do-ha then told her that back in high school he dated Eun-jae, because Eun-ji has a kind personality. But all that changed on the day of school graduation, when he and Eun-jae had a long-distance relationship, because Do-ha studied music in Seoul. Every time they meet, Eun-jae always acts jealous and asks Do-ha to keep coming in the middle of his busy schedule. In fact, Eun-jae dares to open Do-ha's cell phone just to reply to every message from women who send him messages on social media. And because of that, made Do-ha fed up. Until the incident occurred, which coincided with the South Korean national team competing in the World Cup, where Eun-ji behaves excessively, as if Do-ha is her obsession. Even more extreme, Eun-ji tried to commit suicide in front of Do-ha. When Do-ha is fed up, Do-ha asks for a breakup on the grounds that he already has another girlfriend, which is what happened in the first scene when Sal-hee saw a young man carrying a blood-stained shirt after Do-ha left on the last night with Eun-jae. The next day, Do-ha was visited by police officers because Eun-ji was declared missing, and Do-ha was the last person with Eun-ji. But at that time, due to lack of evidence and Eun-ji's body was never found, the case was ruled a suicide. But even so, in Do-ha's mind, he continued to feel guilty, and then he felt it was all because of him. Hearing Do-ha's story, Sal-hee understood why his ability to detect whether Do-ha was lying or not was capable of her. It's because in Do-ha's deepest heart, he continues to feel guilty. Until when the night was getting darker and colder, Do-ha, who was afraid that Eum-ho was still wandering around looking for him outside, told Sal-hee to stay at his house. Until the romantic and sporty atmosphere occurs simultaneously, because the two of them even stay up late to watch their favorite team's football. Until at that moment, a romantic kiss almost happened, when they were almost together, but it didn't happen because they were distracted by the soccer team they were watching scoring a goal. But even so, both of them could smile happily, even though their relationship was previously tenuous. Until when morning came, the two decided to go on a picnic together. Where they were, the romantic moments that were created, in the end, they both expressed their respective feelings. And the romantic kiss of these two lovebirds, which had been delayed, was finally accomplished too. But behind the happiness that Do-ha and Sal-hee are now feeling, without them realizing it, problems arise again. Because one of the televisions is now raising news about the murder that happened to Eun-ji 5 years ago, which at that time had a single suspect named Kim Sung-ju. Although the media still does not know if Kim Sung-ju is real name of Kim Do-ha, the mysterious talented composer, whose face is currently unknown to many people. However, Kang-min, who sees the news, is immediately surprised and panicked, because Sung-ju is reportedly Sal-hee's lover. Likewise, Eum-ho, where he immediately went to the TV anchor to find out where Kim Sung-ju's current home address was. The news anchor who didn't know then said a rumor that he knew, but had not been reported, if Kim Sung-ju was Kim Do-ha. And one way to find out Kim Do-ha's address is to ask Sion directly. Because, according to the news anchor, only Seon is the one who knows where Kim Do-ha lives. When Seon finished the gig, he was immediately taken by Eum-ho to tell Do-ha's address. However, Sion, who knew Eum-ho was and his purpose, she decided didn't tell Eum-ho. However, Eum-ho has other plans. That is contacting Do-ha using Sion's cell phone. Hearing that Sion was being held captive by Eum-ho, Do-ha agreed to meet, as long as Eum-ho released Sion, because Sion had nothing to do with him. Alone, Do-ha came to the place Eum-ho said. Eum-ho, who seemed eager to kill Do-ha, immediately beat Do-ha to the ground. and Eun-ho immediately asked why Do-ha had the heart to kill his sister Eun-ji when she loved Do-ha so much, even considered Do-ha as her dream. Do-ha then answered if he did not kill Eun-ji. Didn't even think that Eun-ji, the woman he loved, would actually commit suicide that night. Hearing that explanation, Eun-ho seemed to soften. But remembering that his sister committed suicide because of Do-ha, Eun-ho's anger returned, and he immediately took the knife he had prepared to accuse Do-ha. When with the knife, Eun-ji wanted to stab Do-ha, Kang-min suddenly came to stop Eun-ho. After Kang-min found out that Do-ha was involved in Eun-ji's death, he was worried about Sol-hee, endlessly investigating the murder case. Until Kang-min secretly watched Do-ha from afar and saw when Do-ha came alone to Eun-ho's place. But when Kang-min was caught off guard, Eun-ho was able to escape. This is when Eun-ho pretended to be fake security that time and was caught by a real officer. For this reason, Kang-min warns Do-ha not to jeopardize Sol-hee from her troubles with Eun-ho. The next day, Sol-hee, who visits Do-ha's apartment, is worried when she sees Do-ha's handsome face has bruises. Do-ha, who didn't want to lie, finally told Sol-hee what happened last night, including himself being helped by Kang-min. Hearing that, Sol-hee asked Kang-min to meet to thank him, but Kang-min warned Sol-hee to stay away from Do-ha for a while because of Do-ha's situation, who is still targeted by Eun-ho. While Do-ha, he was seen meeting Duk-chan, where his goal was to ask Duk-chan to cancel his contract, because Do-ha feels that if the situation becomes known to the media, it will harm and damage the good reputation of the agency. And a request was approved by Duk-chan, with the condition if the news had subsided, then Do-ha had to return. When night falls, despite his troubles, Do-ha can still feel happy when Sol-hee energetically encourages Do-ha. The scene then moves to a convenience store clerk named Lee Young-jae, where he aspires to be a famous composer like Do-ha and is very ambitious to achieve that. Because Young-jae has a brother who will soon debut as an idol with stage named Ethan. Where although Young-jae now only works odd jobs as a convenience store cashier, but his musical talent is very strong. Do-ha realized this when he accidentally saw the music Young-jae had made. In fact, Do-ha offered to help Young-jae when the street music festival was held, where Young-jae, assisted by Do-ha, won the festival. Even at that moment, Do-ha felt that his life was now more perfect because there was a figure of Sol-hee who always made him happy. But in the midst of that happiness, problems arose again when 3 people who were digging the ground found a skull corpse in the mountains of the village where Do-ha used to live. And when the police commander who there to check it out, Kang-min also there too. The police commander, unbeknownst to Kang-min, hid a ring on the corpse body. Back to Do-ha, after the festival was over, he and Sol-hee, as well as all the residents of the apartment, were seen having a small celebration for Young-jae. Where there, Do-ha was frank about himself being Kim Do-ha, the famous song composer, whose face was unknown. The recognition made Young-jae both surprised and proud, making him whine to Do-ha to be his mentor in music. But Young-jae's request was rejected by Do-ha, because Do-ha felt that if Young-jae's natural talent in music was great, or in other words, he didn't need a mentor anymore, just do it as musician. However, Young-jae, who idolized Do-ha, couldn't stop whining. Even when Young-jae was drunk, he continued to whine until Young-jae too much drunk, and then broke into Do-ha's apartment and slept there. This disturbed Do-ha and Sol-hee's intimacy. For this reason, Do-ha used Young-jae's cell phone, then contacted Young-jae's brother to pick Young-jae up. On the other hand, it turned out that the skeleton found earlier was none other than Eun-ji's body. From the results obtained by the police officer who autopsied her skeleton corpse, the body was indeed the body of Eun-jae, who died from a hit by a blunt object. From these results, Kang-min again questioned Do-ha's statement, because from the information, Do-ha was the last person to meet Eun-ji before Eun-ji was declared missing by suicide. For that, Kang-min went back to Sol-hee and told her everything, and asked if Sol-hee detected any lies from Do-ha's words. Regarding that, Sol-hee even says that Do-ha is telling the truth, even as she doesn't care. Sol-hee then goes back to doing romantic things together. In a different place, the police commander who had hidden a ring from Eunji's body was seen anxiously calling Do-ha's mother to tell her everything. Hearing that, Do-ha's mother was so pretentious and scared. Do-ha's mother then asked the police commander to do something before Do-ha would be called back for interrogation. Long story short, because Kim Do-ha was called back for investigation by police investigators in the Eunji murder case, his real name surfaced, and his identity as a famous composer was now known to the media, making Eun-ho, who initially doubted whether Do-ha killed his sister or not, now that Eunji's body was found, made him even more eager to take revenge. After finding the apartment where Do-ha lives carrying a sharp weapon, Eun-ho is seen preparing. And when he saw Do-ha enter his apartment, without thinking he immediately stabbed him behind so hard. However, it wasn't Do-ha, but Ethan, Youngjae's brother, who wanted to meet Do-ha at his apartment. Do-ha, who saw that, then tried to stop Eun-ho, who was now trying to attack him. A struggle ensues between them. Sal-hee, who saw that, immediately contacted Kang-min. Kang-min, who happened to be nearby, immediately rushed over and managed to take Eun-ho down for arrest. Another problem then came, because now the media reported that Kim Do-ha, the famous composer, was Eunji's murderer, making Duk-chan continue to get calls, because it immediately went viral on social media, which of course has an impact on his artist management. Do-ha himself now doesn't really think about it, because he is now more focused on Ethan, who because of his mistake had to become a victim of Eun-ho's misdirection, and is now in the hospital. Where unlike in the past, who was always afraid of being mobbed by the media, Do-ha is now being gentle by saying that he is not the one who killed Eunji, and promised to reveal everything. Sal-hee, who saw that, of course, was very worried, but hearing Do-ha's words that he really wanted to find Eunji's killer, Sal-hee felt a little relieved and promised to help him, even though it was certainly rejected by Do-ha because it was too dangerous. While Do-ha was searching for clues about Eunji, Do-ha was visited by Duk-chan's younger brother, Jae-chan. His goal was to ask Do-ha for money, because his business was being destroyed. At first, Do-ha, who was busy looking for clues about Eunji, refused Jae-chan's request. But when Jae-chan told him about himself, knowing that Eunji used to always get intimidated by her father and was always forced to give money, Do-ha gave Jae-chan the money. Do-ha immediately said goodbye to Sal-hee, then go to the village where he used to live with Eunji, Duk-chan, and Jae-chan to find clues about Eunji. In a different place, when Kang-min wants to take Eun-ho to the prison, Eun-ho suddenly says to Kang-min if he has a notebook about all the information he has collected so far. That is, about her sister's death. After reading Eun-ho's notebook, Kang-min feels something strange. That's because it was written that at that time there was an eyewitness, but was never asked for any information by the police commander. As it turned out, it was related to Do-ha's own mother. She secretly asked the police commander to settle the matter, because she felt that Do-ha was indeed Eunji's murderer, even though her own purposes is only to keep his good reputation intact. Meanwhile, Do-ha, who was looking for clues about Eunji in his village, couldn't find anything. That's because everyone he met instead assumed if Do-ha was the killer, like what the media reported. That of course made Do-ha only can to brood, because he didn't find any clues. Until when Do-ha was brooding, Sal-hee came to make Do-ha happy, in the midst of the chaos he was passed through. With the help of Sal-hee, who can detect lies, Do-ha can easily find clues, until he got to a bank where Eunji used to work. One of the employees told them that Eunji's father had become very depraved, because before Eunji's death, Eunji's father registered Eunji's death insurance, as if her father had planned to kill Eunji. But the insurance money was not dispersed, because Eunji was declared as a suicide all this time. However, after police officers managed to find Eunji's body, and Eunji was suspected to have been murdered, her father also got Eunji's death insurance money. Hearing that, Do-ha and also Sal-hee increasingly suspected that Eunji's father was the murderer. Until after searching around, Do-ha and also Sal-hee managed to find the location of Eunji's father now, which was in a gambling place. However, when going in, Do-ha and Sol-hee were immediately intercepted by the guard. This is because they are not members. However, Sol-hee suddenly met the chief thug she used to help. Finally, the chief thug allowed them to enter, because the gambling place belonged to the chief thug. While inside, Do-ha emotionally questioned Eunji's father about his involvement. While drunk, Eunji's father said that he wished Eunji dead because he wanted to get the insurance money. But he didn't kill Eunji at all and suspect someone because he always followed Eunji, who happened to be there. That person is none other than Jae-chan, Duk-chan's younger brother. Jae-chan, who saw Do-ha, immediately ran away, making Do-ha chase after Jae-chan. Until thanks to the help of the chief thug, they managed to catch up with Jae-chan. Feeling cornered, Jae-chan confessed to being Eunji's affair boyfriend. That made Do-ha a provoked little bit, but Sol-hee says that Jae-chan's words are lies. Then Jae-chan ran away again. But this time Do-ha didn't pursue him, knowing that Jae-chan would definitely meet his brother Duk-chan. While Kang-min, who is also looking for clues using Eun-ho's notes, can meet a witness who claims to have seen the incident, where the witness said that he had reported what he saw when he last saw Eunji before being declared missing, namely when Eunji was on the seafront and was visited by a man wearing a Korean national team jersey. However, his testimony was not even considered by the police commander. This certainly makes Kang-min even more curious, because he feels there is something odd in the case of Eunji's death. Meanwhile, Do-ha is now seen meeting Duk-chan to say that Jae-chan might be Eunji's killer. However, Duk-chan behaved differently, trying to defend his brother. This makes Do-ha feel that there is something Duk-chan has been hiding all this time. And at night, Kang-min gave Do-ha a message inviting him to meet. Kang-min says he's close to finding a clue that might give Do-ha an alibi if Do-ha is innocent. That makes Do-ha ask why Kang-min, who is Sol-hee's ex and arguably her rival, would do all that. Kang-min then answers that he didn't do all that for Do-ha, but he did it for Sol-hee because he no longer wanted to see Sol-hee sad if Do-ha was later found guilty. The next day, Kang-min, who was still trying to find clues, was contacted by the police commander who used to be his superior. The commander's purpose is because he wants to give Kang-min the ring found on Eunji's body. He does that while admitting his guilt for covering up Eunji's murder case on the orders of Do-ha's mother, who again and again fears that her political image will be destroyed if Do-ha is indeed the murderer. With this strong evidence, Kang-min then searches for the ring's maker to find the owner, because the owner of the ring is probably Eunji's killer. After searching around, Kang-min managed to find the shop that made the ring. From the shop owner's information, if the ring is exactly the same as the couple ring ordered by Do-ha first. But there is a little different, because this ring is bigger than the ring that was ordered by Do-ha. Afterwards, Kang-min went to Do-ha to ask him directly if this ring was his own. Do-ha, who saw the ring, did not know it at all, because according to Do-ha, he had thrown his ring into the sea when he last met Eunji. Seeing Sol-hee giving the code that what Do-ha just said was the truth, Kang-min then said that the possibility of Eunji's murderer was someone close to Do-ha. That makes Do-ha even more convinced if that person is Jae-chan. But Kang-min says that it's now their job to find strong evidence, whatever it is, that can ensnare Jae-chan to be punished. Because if it's not done, then Jae-chan will only just be interrogated, because the incident happened a long time ago, and there are no witnesses who saw Jae-chan meet with Eunji. With no other choice, Do-ha then said that he would become Sol-hee's client to hire her services. It was to detect Duk-chan's lies. Until with all the questions that led to Jae-chan's involvement, Duk-chan lied. Strangeness ensued when Duk-chan said that his brother had turned himself in to the police station. Although it was good news, because now all the media reports about Do-ha's badliness had been withdrawn, but Sol-hee felt there was something odd about everything Duk-chan said, because Duk-chan didn't seem to feel sad that his brother was going to jail, and instead focused more on his work. But he didn't tell Do-ha about his disappointment, because now Do-ha was feeling happy, because he thought his problem was solved. The same goes for Kang-min, who feels the same way as Sol-hee, because he feels that the guilty person can't possibly be happy with Jae-chan right now. Suddenly, Jae-chan has Eunji's ring, which he uses as a confession if he is Eunji's killer. For this reason, Kang-min asks Sol-hee to come see Jae-chan in person to detect the lies that Jae-chan is hiding. Sol-hee is seen meeting Jae_chan, who is relaxing in his cell. With her ability to detect other people's lies, Sol-hee tries to ask Jae-chan questions. At first, Jae-chan tries to dodge all of Sol-hee's questions, claiming that the ring is his because he's jealous of Do-ha, who wears a couple ring with Eun-jae. However, Sol-hee, who has several years of experience in lies that people try to hide, with a few tricks and techniques, was able to make Jae-chan mentally exposed. Until finally Jae-chan said everything. That if Duk-chan, his brother, was Eunji's killer, and the evidence of Eunji's ring that was on him was actually given by Duk-chan, his brother. Feeling still lacking evidence, Sol-hee continues to persuade Jae-chan to say, is there any other evidence that could drag Duk-chan as a suspect? Feeling that he had already said it, Jae-chan explained that in his brother's office, there was other evidence that Duk-chan would not be able to refute. For this reason, Sol-hee immediately rushed to Duk-chan's office to find the evidence mentioned by Jae-chan. Upon arrival, Sol-hee then contacted Do-ha and told him everything. Do-ha, who just found out about it, immediately hurriedly went there, because he was worried about Sol-hee. Duk-chan, who saw Sol-hee coming out of his room with something, immediately chased Sol-hee to snatch the evidence. Until Sol-hee detected Duk-chan's honesty, when he said he would turn himself in as suspect after giving the company to Do-ha. This makes Sol-hee confused and asks why Duk-chan would do that. Duk-chan then confessed that he was a homosexual who had feelings to Do-ha, and without Duk-chan realize, it turns out that Do-ha heard it. Of course, his confession made Duk-chan embarrassed and immediately ran away. Sol-hee and Do-ha then chased Duk-chan, until on the road Duk-chan had to get into a car accident. At that moment, Do-ha and also Kang-min, who were trying to save, instead left Sol-hee alone and got too close to Duk-chan's car, which rolled over. Due to a gasoline leak, the car exploded near Sol-hee. That made Do-ha worried and immediately took her to the hospital. Fortunately, Sol-hee was fine and no body parts were injured. Sol-hee then told Do-ha to stay at the hospital to wait for Duk-chan until wake up, because Sol-hee knows that Do-ha is very curious about everything that happened. Until when Duk-chan woke up, Do-ha then asked Duk-chan about everything, where Duk-chan also told him that what he heard earlier was true. If he really likes Do-ha and always feels jealous when Do-ha is with Eunji first. Until it was realized by Eunji and threatened to tell it to Do-ha. That's what scared Duk-chan, so he accidentally killed Eunji. But for fear that Do-ha would be blamed for his actions, Duk-chan deliberately manipulated Eunji's death as a suicide and always carried Eunji's ring and Eunji's clothes. If what he feared happened, that Do-ha became a murder suspect, then he would turn himself in with all the evidence he kept. Do-ha understood and said goodbye as a friend because he wouldn't see him again. Long story short, the problem was finally solved, and Do-ha's good reputation was back and restored. The media now turned around to report Do-ha's kindness. It made Do-ha even more popular. Meanwhile, Sol-hee now feels something strange when she can't detect whether or not the person she's listening to is telling the truth. Even now, the client who hired her is disappointed because Sol-hee can't detect other people's lies anymore. This makes Sol-hee's feelings become indecisive, because now she is a normal person, but on the other hand, she feels like she has lost something special. However, Do-ha, who knew about it, continued to encourage his lover, because according to Do-ha, that is not the most important thing for him, because he will still love Sol-hee, whether or not Sol-hee has that special ability. Hearing such sweet words, Sol-hee immediately blossomed, because she was lucky to have a man who was as understanding as Kim Do-ha. Meanwhile, Sol-hee's mother, who is notorious for being greedy, is shocked when she sees her ex-husband, Sol-hee's father, become a viral forest vlog YouTuber. The viewers are so many, watched by many people. Even TV media has reported about Sol-hee's father. This makes this mother feel like she wants to reconcile with Sol-hee's father, even though she is still reluctant. While the lucky Chae-hoon can meet his favorite idol again, Sion, who now looks like she is starting to move on from Do-ha. Sion also began to be interested in Chae-hoon, because Chae-hoon was always there when he needed help. Then the scene moves to Kang-min. He is now trying to move on from his love for Sol-hee. Kang-min even dares to say that to Sol-hee, as well as saying goodbye, because maybe he won't meet Sol-hee again, to be able to quickly heal his feeling for Sol-hee. Sol-hee, who knows that Kang-min is a very good man, can only pray for Kang-min to find a good woman who can love Kang-min. Sol-hee's happiness then increased after her mother, who used to be very crazy about money, slowly began to change to good. Sol-hee, who knows that his father still loves his mother, tries to match the two of them again, although it is not easy, because her mother is very prided and modern, while her father is now enjoying his life in the forest, far from the luxury and modern things. But Sol-hee, who wants to see her family intact again, then persuades her father to change his appearance, so that her mother can fall in love with him again. Until with her father's new appearance, her mother looks incredulous at her ex-husband's very different appearance. But even so, Sol-hee's mother still tries to lie by not admitting her feeling. Until it triggers Sol-hee's special abilities back again. She can detect someone's lies again. And when she wants to say all her mother's lies about her feelings, Sol-hee was surprised when her father very gently hugged her mother because he was sensitive to someone's feelings. Seeing that, Sol-hee was happy because she could see her father and mother reconcile. And Sol-hee can also learn something, if someone must be sensitive to someone else's feelings. While Do-ha, who was always away from his mother, now that she's no longer busy as a counselor, his mother comes to approve his relationship with Sol-hee. That's because his mother has known about their relationship for a long time. With his mother's attitude, Do-ha is grateful that his happiness is not opposed by his mother. Do-ha's happiness is increasing because the new music project with Yeonja and also his brother Ethan can be very well received by the public. Even the song he created that Ethan sang in his first debut immediately became the #1 trending. So, because of that achievement, Do-ha was again honored as the best composer and songwriter. But this time, unlike in the past, he was always represented by Sion. Now Do-ha, who has found his happiness because of Sol-hee, he encouraged himself to appear in public, and no longer hides his identity. On stage, he thanks for all the opportunities and appreciation given to him. The scene then moves to Sion and Chae-hoon, who are now getting closer, even like dating couple. After that, the scene moves back to Sol-hee, who sees her mother and father living happily. And now they have a cafe in the forest that sells well and is crowded, because the concept is integrated with nature. After that, as usual, Do-ha and Sol-hee always stay up late, not to do perverted things, but to watch their favorite football. The scene then closes with Kim Do-ha proposing to mock Sol-hee by giving Sol-hee a beautiful ring. And long story short, the two were seen traveling for their honeymoon, and the My Lovely Liar series ended with a happy ending.